Hello, I'm Andrew Garver, and I'm in Manhattan, Kansas right now. And this is my timeline for special education. Alrighty, let's start her out. Alright, so this guy, Horace Mann, he was a Massachusetts politician and reformer. He also, he basically he was the first proponent of the common schools that we see today. So he wanted everybody to come in, or all the children to come in together to one school and learn at the same, or learn the same thing in the same, under the same roof, to create a more congealed society. Because at that point, um, he started doing this in the late 1840s. Yeah, late 1840s, early 1850s, and when he really got going with it. Uh, he, um, what he did was, I mean, there was a lot of people immigrating to the United States at that point, so there was these large amounts of immigrant groups just hanging around, and they would all be the fear was that all these groups that came over, they all stuck together in their boroughs and their towns and villages, and the fear was that this would cause unrest and not not be good for the country. So what Mr. Mann here wanted to do was bring all those children together and educate them the same way under the same roof and create uh, a a united bond. He's deemed the father of the common school movement for it. He also created the first state board of education in Massachusetts. So he was a pretty cool guy. Alrighty, so let's hop forward to Brown versus the Board of Education, which most people remember. You should remember if you went to school in the United States as the Supreme Court case that deemed segregation illegal in schools. So no longer could schools deny children based on their color, race, creed. And it started down the road for me in Topeka. Uh, it nationwide, and it was one of the first. So it was one of the first. It's pretty much a jumping off point for the civil rights movement that ended in the Civil Rights Act in '64, if I remember right, '64, '65. But that's kind of what got special education. I mean, it was a springboard for it, because now everybody can be brought in to the school. Now we just need, or at this point in '54, now we just need more rights for students with disabilities. Alrighty. Okay, so the ESEA, or the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, was enacted in 1965. And basically it created a bureau. It didn't really do much of anything but create the Bureau of Education for the Handicapped. It didn't necessarily change anything or change anybody's minds or even put a law down, but it created the education, or it created a bureau so that the ball got rolling, you know. And as you can see, '65, that's 11 years after. That's 11 years after Brown versus Board of Education. So it's the education of children with disabilities is now, it's picking up steam, but it's a slow burn. It's picking, or it's starting to go, or it's starting to rise. The ESEA is known as the Office of Special Education Programs. There is a lot of acronyms in this. I'm sorry. All right. So Park versus Pennsylvania dealt with in '72. There was the court case was in '72. It dealt with students with mental retardation and how school districts see that. And then Mills versus DC, or I'm sorry, Park versus Pennsylvania. The result of that was children with mental retardation were allowed in schools, and the parents were to be involved in where their child goes to school. It no longer was I don't know. From my understanding, it was like if my child had mental retardation and this school that's close to me was not what I wanted them to do, and they didn't want my kid, I could then choose another school that's close by that will accept it and now must accept it, accept him or her. That was my understanding of it. So Mills versus the D.C. Board of Education. This was only in the District of Columbia. It dealt with the suspending, expulsion, and excluding children with disabilities. So there's a problem, a big problem, with children not even getting a chance. Children with disabilities not even getting a chance in the in the District of Columbia school system. But this what am I looking for? Not act. This case said that they can't do that. You can't say that this kid can't be in school because he has a disability. You can't do that. And that's right. Both of these cases made it a little bit easier for kids with disabilities to go to school, and they started going more after this. But before these two cases, before '72, there was, kids with mental retardation or autism or any of that, they sometimes would just opt not to go to school because they're not going to get the attention and everything that they need. So this is, see the ball slowly rolling down, and we're getting there. All right. So the Rehabilitation Act of '73 and FERPA, or the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. So there was after the Mills and Pack cases, there's a congressional investigation nationwide to see how children with disabilities were being treated and being educated, and they saw that it wasn't good. So in '73, a year after these cases, they passed a national law that basically protected the people with a disability from being kicked out of school or persecuted, essentially, because they have a disability. Not a lot of teachers, or it didn't really get publicized, or the media then wasn't the media that it is now. So, but not a lot of teachers knew about it. So not a lot of teachers even knew that it was part of the public schools, which I think is ridiculous. But what are you gonna do? The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act of '74. Basically, it just gave parents the right to look at everything that the school has or the district has regarding their child if there's a disability. Not even a disability. It just gives them the right to know what the school has on it. So, on to the next one. Okay, I can't even pronounce it. EAHCA, or the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which is now IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It more a little bit farther down the line. We'll cover that, but schools before 75 would deny education to those with not all the time, but would deny education based on disabilities. And this Education for All Handicapped Children Act was or said that they have to take a child that wants to come to school must be allowed to come to school with this act. So now we're up to the point where parents can know what the school has. Handicapped children can come to school, and they are legally must be treated as any other student. So we haven't quite got to having a special ed program yet. Final regulations on these, it was in the 77 to 78 school year, and it said that the schools must provide education for school or teachers or students with disabilities. In '86, they amended ECHA, and it makes clear that it basically said that students and parents have rights to see what they're doing, see what the teachers are doing, and know what's happening. The Americans with Disabilities Act, it was in 1990. Excuse me. It basically said that, or it adopted ECHA's regulations to a national level and along all lines, and it basically said that people with disabilities, not just in school, have rights. And also in 1990, ECHA was amended and to become what it is today, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. It changed things. One thing really it changed. IDEA changed when it flipped. The biggest change was that schools were now required to have some sort of transition plan and assistance for students with disabilities that are going from high school into the real world, essentially. I mean, whether it be to college or to a job, or they need to assist in 1990. All right. No Child Left Behind, enacted in 2001. It's basically says that everybody in the school must pass math and reading to be proficient. So to be what the state says is proficient, which I can't remember what the proficiency level is, but I'll read this quote because it's a quote from the deal because it's pretty good, or it kind of sums everything up. All children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain high-quality education and reach, at minimum, proficiency on challenging state academic achievement standards and state academic assessments. So, yeah, and it was supposed to be by the year 2014. I'm not 100% sure if that happened or not. I didn't find that in my lookings. In 2004, IDEA got reauthorized. It basically said that now states have to create some sort of way to judge a child with a disability on their state assessments, and they have to be consistent with goals and standards of the children that don't have disabilities. So if a child with no disabilities gets here, it's all over the place. But it also required states to improve on their graduation rates, and dropout rates. Thank you very much.